Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have some 5-star predictions for you guys. So still, I think that this is going to be my 4th 5-star prediction video. I tend to do one a year and I didn't even realize that I hadn't done one this year until I ticked off one of my previous 5-star predictions and realized that we had no new list to go off. I still have not completed a 5-star prediction video. I think from every one I've done, there's like one book missing that I still need to read before I can do a follow-up and say whether they did actually turn out to be 5 stars. But what I can say is that not a lot of them do turn out to be 5 stars. So apparently I have no idea what I actually like. Now that being said, it's a lot more rare for me to give a 5-star these days than it used to be, so that could very well have something to do with it. But regardless, today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 books that I think that I may give 5 stars to. So in this video we have 3 fantasy books, 1 fantasy romance and 1 romance, and we're going to be kicking it straight off with the fantasy. So first off we have Malice by John Gwynne. I've heard amazing things about this series. One thing that's probably worth noting is that when I make these videos I tend to use the first book in a series because I prefer series, but I feel like it's not a true 5-star prediction if I'm using like a sequel. Most of the time there is 1 sequel in here, but I don't really feel like it's a true prediction if I'm using the sequel to something I've already read. And I don't tend to give the first book in a series 5 stars, like even my favorite series like Red Rising, first book 4 stars, the rest of them 5. So when it comes to the results of this video, it is very possible that I will give the book that I've actually put in the video 4 stars, but then the series could go on to be 5, which I feel may be the case with this. This is a very big chunky adult fantasy series. I think there's 4 books in total, so it's not too long, but it centers around a war between humans and giants. I've heard amazing things about this from people who have a very similar reading taste to me, like Aaron from Booked and Busy, and the only real thing I know about it in terms of like structure and narrative is that there are a lot of character perspectives in here. I feel like there's going to be a lot of character casualties in here because of how many characters you have, and it's little things like that, like when you actually have meaningful deaths in a series, that really bump up the rating for me, especially if they are going to be characters that I'm attached to, because I'm a very character driven reader. I like to care about the characters I'm reading about, and when a book can hit me emotionally because it's impactful and we have some of those meaningful deaths, then it's even more likely to be 5 stars. The next adult fantasy is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, the first book in the first Law trilogy. This one is a grimdark fantasy. Joe Abercrombie is known as Lord Grimdark, so I expect his books to be very dark, very gritty, once again full of things like meaningful deaths, brutality, like bad things happening to our characters, which I personally love. And I know very little about this one because I've kind of picked it up on reputation as opposed to actually the plot, but I believe that the main character in here is a torturer. Something else that I feel like I'm gonna really enjoy when I get into Joe Abercrombie is that this is an extended universe. I believe that there are currently 2 trilogies and 3 standalones set in this world. I think you read the first trilogy, which is this first, then the standalones, and then the second trilogy. But once again, as somebody who is a series reader, somebody who really loves to be in a story for an extended period of time, when an author continues to write in the same world, that gets me even more hooked. Like think Realm of the Eldlings by Robin Hobb, which a lot of those books are 5-star reads for me. I don't actually know the specifics of the rest of the books past the first Law trilogy, whether we're following the same set of characters. So I know I mentioned the torturer, but on the synopsis of this we also have an infamous barbarian and a paragon of selfishness, so we don't just have the torture in here, and I don't know the specifics of like who the follow-up books to this series follow. One that I don't know whether it's strictly fantasy or a little bit of sci-fi as well is The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. I am going to be reading this in the next couple of months and I'm so excited. This has made it into this video based on reputation alone. It is a new book, it's a debut from this author. I know a lot of people have said that the cover looks YA, but it is very much an adult book, and the thing that's really hooked me with this is that it's been recommended to me based on how much I love Red Rising. I've seen people say that it's the best adult fantasy they've ever read. All of those things just sound really exciting to me. So I'm not sure, because of the cover here we have planets. It doesn't specifically mention anything sci-fi on the back aside from magic, technology and rebellion meet in this stunning debut. So we have technology in there, but like this is like space. sci-fi kind of vibes I'm getting from the cover. But this is set in a world that has a strict class system. There is also misogyny, there's racism, and we are following a young woman called Ikenna who enters the gladiatorial war games to get closer to the people who killed her grandfather. Like I said, it's the reputation of this book that's really drawing me to it. I am so excited to pick it up just because of the hype that I've heard, and it's not just like general hype, it's people specifically coming to me and saying like, you are going to love this book. So I really like, I'm taking them on their word. I feel like I'm gonna love this book, and I really hope I do. Segueing into fantasy romance, and the only other sequel in this video, we have Wildlands by Stacey Marie Brown. I do find it very difficult to put the first book in a fantasy romance series on a 5-star prediction list because it is very hit and miss, especially because I read a lot of indie. There are a lot of treasures in indie fantasy romance, but there are also a lot of books that aren't quite as great. So the first book in this series I have read, I gave it 4 stars. It took me a while to warm up to it, but by the time I got to the end I was really into it. But I kind of expect every book in this series to build upon the foundations of the first book to the point where like I am obsessed with this series. So this one very much gives me Divergent vibes based on the setting, Red Queen vibes based on the beginning of the book, and then we come in with a little bit of bone season throughout the majority of the middle, but of course make all of that like adult fantasy romance instead of, in a couple of those cases, YA fantasy. So in this one we are following a young woman called Brexley who was born at the moment that the veil dropped between the worlds of the human and the Fae. Her father was this legendary general and he sadly died during the Fae Wars, so she has been taken on by the king as his ward. And the city is set in Budapest, and the city is split into 2, so we have like the Fae side and the human side. She is in the human side, she's the ward of the king, and she is very attached to the prince. He's her childhood best friend and she is in love with him. Now, as she's from a position of privilege, she likes to be a little bit rebellious, and she regularly robs trains to steal drugs and put them on the black market so that the money is in the hands of the people who will benefit from it instead of the elite. And one day she's caught and taken to this like notorious prison where she meets this guy who is he's the guy that like human children are terrified of because their parents will tell them stories of this like notorious barbarian. I just got more and more invested in the first book up until the end. I was torn between the love interest a little bit. It took me a while to warm up to one of them. By the time I got to the end, I was very much sold, and the first book ends on not necessarily a cliffhanger, but like more of a shocking moment, and it was at that point that I realized that I'd become truly invested in the first book, so I'm expecting good things from the sequel. And the final one is a contemporary romance, and honestly, I'm saying that this is a 5-star prediction, but I have a feeling it could go either way. So it could be 5 stars or it could be 2 stars, but that is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. So this one is a contemporary romance about a woman who has told her family that she has this like gorgeous amazing American boyfriend, and when she has to go home for her sister's wedding, they're expecting to take him as a date. However, he doesn't actually exist. So when it comes down to it, Catalina has to go home to her sister's wedding and nobody has agreed to accompany her, so she ends up taking her arch nemesis Aaron Blackford to be her date for the wedding. This is an enemies to lovers romance. I've recently read and adored The Hating Game. Vish from Books with V actually gifted me this based on my enjoyment of The Hating Game, and said that it was one of her favorite romances ever. And me and Vish have very similar reading tastes, so if you tend to agree with my book recommendations, would definitely recommend that you go check Vish out. I will link her channel down in my description box along with everybody else that I ever mention in videos. But then I went on to Goodreads, and this has a ton of like 1 and 2 star reviews. People say that it's too long and kind of repetitive and just like a rip-off of The Hating Game. So it could go either way for me, but just based on how similar my taste is to Vish's, I have a feeling we're going to go more in the direction of 5 stars as opposed to like 2. So there you have it. Those are 5 5-star predictions. Please let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. I feel like these 3, there's a good chance of me reading pretty soon. These 2, I'm not too sure about. If there's one straggler on this video that I haven't completed, it's going to be Malice by John Gwynne, and I had the opportunity to read it last month and I didn't end up getting around to it, which is sad. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on these down in my comments, and based on your knowledge of what I enjoy, let me know which of these you think I will actually rate 5 stars. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go when nobody knows ghosts with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.